it's always the owner holding everything together in his mind. And you can just tell, like, yeah, you're whip smart. But they'll be the first to admit, they're like, well, I'm starting to forget like certain things that I never would have forgot before. I have to track this guy down to do this thing. You're just babysitting at that point. So you need to be able to create a system that allows you to step back from babysitting and, lets the kids take care of themselves,
This is Conquer Contractor Chaos, built for the contractor that's ready to run a business that works for them and creates the life they've been fighting for. Tune in to get the tools, systems, and strategies that are battle-proven to set you free. One move each episode, straight talk, things you can use today. Take your time back, be home for dinner, do the work, lead your crew, love your family, conquer the chaos.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Conquer Contractor Chaos podcast. And if you're a cabinet maker or a closet guy, you're going to know my next guest. Today I'm being joined by my friend and industry powerhouse, Phill Anton of Phill Anton Consultant, who is going to be helping us get a bigger picture of where cabinet makers and closet guys are really dropping the ball when it comes to their shop operations. I'm going to come in the background and help with some business stuff. And if you're someone who is tired of having no process, no system in your shop, someone who doesn't know their business, doesn't know their numbers, stay tuned. This podcast episode is going to be an absolute goldmine for you. Mr. Phill Anton, welcome to the show, man. It's good to connect with you.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you having me on.
So this is obviously you did your podcast episode with Nick Frost, and I was like, okay, I need to get Phill on my show. I want to grill him a little bit more and get into the weeds.
Yeah.
But for guys who maybe have never heard of you, Phill, why don't you give us a little bit of a background on you? Like, where did you start and where are you today? What do you do now?
Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I do consulting for cabinet makers, and I kind of help them set up. I'm like a Mozaik spirit guide at this point, right? So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, if you're using Mozaik as a cabinet software, I'm here to help like guide you in the right direction, right? So I get beginners that really have no idea where to start, or maybe they have an idea and they just want to set it up efficiently for their team, right? They want to make the most money possible with their software. So it makes sense to come to somebody who basically all I do is think about how to set up Mozaik in a way that works for your company, right? Yeah.
Gotcha. So for Mozaik, is it wildly different for everyone? Does everyone a unique situation, or is it pretty cut and paste depending on size or product? Like, how does that factor in?
Yeah, so a lot of my experience has to do with the CNC machine, right? And then drafting and how do we get information from the office to the shop in an efficient way so that we can reduce mistakes out in the shop, right? So
Nice.
yeah, so really it depends on what size the shop is, obviously. I work with a lot of 1 to 10 to up to 20 employee shops. And really the biggest question is how do you want to set up your build method, right? Because when you're building
Nice.
cabinets on a table saw, it's a lot different than when you're building them on the CNC, cutting them out on the CNC. So really what I have to deal with is my job is basically within the first 10 minutes, I should be able to understand where you are right now and where you want to go. And that's actually a lot easier than it sounds if you've been doing it for a while, right? So one of the first questions I try to answer without asking it straight up is how many things can we change on you at once before it's too much, right? Because if we change too many things, if we're going from butt joint to blind dado construction, that's fine. But if we're going to qualified tenon and we're trying to add adjustable legs and we're trying to add drawer front fasteners and all these things that make shops super efficient, we can't do that all at once with certain shops, right? Maybe it's not as much of a blank slate as you'd like them to be, which is totally fine though, because we can start with a couple things, push them out to the shop. Sometimes the install crew is the one that kind of decides more than you'd like them to, right? So getting everyone on board with a couple changes letting them see what the CNC can do without overwhelming them with changes. And then, you come back maybe 3 weeks or 3 months later and you've got a list of questions for me and we just kind of knock them out, right? Because once
Mhm.
you make a couple changes and it's successful, then we can make maybe like 10 changes, right? And maybe they're small,
Right.
maybe they're really small tweaks, but as long as you know the company and how their software is set up and how their shop, how their culture is a little bit, if you understand their culture a little bit, then you can set them up with the right upgrades, right?
Gotcha, gotcha. And it's
Yeah.
funny that you said culture because I mean, you would think that this would be pretty much plug and play, but is it
Yeah.
when you say culture, do you mean, what is the attitude of the team? Are they open to learning? Are they, can they handle more than the average guy in terms of how many, changes you make, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and
Eh,
and how organized the shop is right now, it determines how much they can kind of handle. I mean,
for sure.
at its foundation, switching over to the CNC is, I mean, it's very simple, right? You only need 3 or 4 tools to get started, and we're cutting out box parts. We're not making rocket ships. So just to get the first box cut and assembled, that's when all the ideas surface for those shops. If they haven't been following along on Facebook or Instagram or, collecting information, it just really depends on that shop's exposure to,
Right.
the world of CNC cabinetry.
Is super eye-opening, man. It sounds like we have very similar roles just in different departments, right? Whereas you're going in
Yeah.
and I do the same thing. I'm like, how much can you handle? Can you,
Hmm.
can you jump into a profit and loss statement and dissect it? Or can
Yeah.
you jump into your productivity metrics and really understand, where your inefficiencies are?
Yeah.
It's it is different for everyone, mindset
Well,
and culture definitely play into it quite a bit.
oh, definitely, and it's fun to see I work with a lot of shops just starting out, but then I also work on with a lot of shops that are, maybe intermediate. They've been using Mosaic for a couple years. They've got their feet wet with the CNC. They've been using that for 1 or 2 years,
Right.
and you know the the potential for making changes with those shops. I mean, it's it's pretty cool to see what you can do with, a shop that's already kind of established. I have
Yeah.
I have some advanced shops, I call them, shops that have been around for a while. They've been using the CNC for 5 or 10 years. And they'll literally just make this huge list and they'll come to me for a couple hours and we'll just talk through it, right? We'll go through all the bullet points. But while we're doing that, I'm looking at their system and I'm looking how they set up and they draft a job. And I can tell just by the way how they set up their job and asking a few follow-up questions, I can determine I can find so many things that were like, okay,
Yeah.
let's tweak this, or what do you think about that? And we'll just kind of talk about where they want to
Yeah.
take things.
I love those clients, the ones who are prepared. And it typically comes one of two ways. Either they've seen somebody else do it and said, I need to
Yeah.
do the same thing, or they've
Hmm.
went through that concrete lesson of hitting concrete and saying, well, that
Yeah.
was stupid. That hurt. I don't want to deal
Yeah.
with that again. So let's
Yeah.
change our process.
Yeah.
Super cool. So how did you so obviously like you've got a background in cabinetry, right? Like you've worked in a
Yeah.
shop before.
Hmm.
So, you know, at what point did you decide like, hey, I really want to put myself in this specific mosaic kind of expert space and get out of the production and out of the shop? Like give us a little bit on the backstory there.
Yeah. A little backstory in that. So it was about 2.5 years ago. I was approached by Nick Frost, and I was using Mosaic a little bit at the shop that I was at currently. Before that, it was Cabinet Vision,
Right.
and Nick kind of told me about the software called Mosaic. Well, I knew about Mosaic, but he was telling me about this consulting world, right? Where you could, you know, use your expertise to help out shops. And I'm the type of person that, once I start getting into something, I get really, really deep into it, right? So I don't consider myself like the normal like 40 hours a week, right? And you're probably the same way. Like when you're really excited about something, you can put in 60, 80, 100 hours. 100 isn't sustainable, but it happens. And
Yeah.
while doing this, my mindset has always been learn as much as I possibly can about the system, right? And efficiency. Mm. Because you can just start doing the task, right? But until you've, you know, it, the idea is just to master it. But how do you master
Mm,
it, if you're you're working in a vacuum and you don't have any exposure to anything else, right? So,
for sure.
yeah,
Especially when you're wearing so many hats too, right? Like if you're an
definitely.
owner of a cabinet or a closet shop and you're trying to handle your finances and you're trying to scale a team and you're trying to build the stuff and you're trying to sell the stuff, like how you have to go specialist, right? And it's
Yeah,
good that you've got guys like yourself and guys like Nick who are out there who took the time to go and become specialists in really specific things, and now you can bring that into the business. It's really hard for a business owner to be that specialist on really anything in their business. So,
yeah,
like I've
definitely.
definitely been there myself in my business where, I was like, if I just hustle and I just keep selling jobs and I keep
Yeah.
producing jobs, surely everything will get easier later, right?
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
ain't that the case for everyone?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. For me, it was, focus on a couple areas for me because I was an employee, right? I didn't own my own shop, and for me, I was hyper focused on the CNC, right? So not only getting efficient cuts and cutting the parts correctly and getting a nice finish quality and all that, but also how do I train someone else to do my job? So creating
Right.
standard operating procedures,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, and in that you have to work with every different kind of worker out there. You have to understand how they learn, and you have to provide kind of standard operating procedures are kind of tough, right? To develop. But yeah, there's just so many aspects of it. And if you're wearing too many hats, then that's when you kind of pull in like a coach like yourself or a consultant like me, and you're like, okay, wearing a lot of hats. I've had some ideas. Let's talk through them. Some guys just need to talk through it, right?
For sure. Yeah. The way I like to explain it to our clients is, if you're the soldier on the battlefield, you're in the trenches, you've got dirt and debris blowing up in your face, you can see 20 feet in front of you. Well, for us, we're up in the AC 130 circling the battlefield saying, hey, you've got enemies coming in 5 miles out. They're going to be there in 15 minutes, And our goal is to bring you up into the airplane with us,
Yeah.
and really show you the whole map of the battleground. And, like for someone who's been there and lived it, and I think that's one of the big important things, especially for consultants, man. Like there's 17-year-olds claiming to be consultants online. There's, you know, you're a
Word
bit more
consultant is like a
specialist.
bad word now,
Oh,
there's got a
dude,
bad
like
rap.
I hate calling myself a coach, man. It makes me cringe. Like I
Yeah.
even say to people, I'm not even a coach. I'm just a contractor who's been there, done it, built a
Yeah.
couple of seven-figure businesses,
Uh-huh.
and now I'm just
Yep.
sharing all of the mistakes that I made. I'm just giving you a
Mhm.
warning saying, hey, well, when I did this, I lost 50 grand. So you can
Yeah.
avoid this if you do the opposite kind of thing,
Well,
which is
isn't
super
that the
cool.
interesting thing about like the consulting and coaching world, whatever you want to call it, right? Is it's really just it's just it's guys that have made all the mistakes there is to make, or we made a ton of mistakes and we just learned from them in a way that, you just kind of collect that information. And I've always tried to be good at teaching others, right? So that's why this job works well for me is because that's what I'm always thinking about, y- how can I explain this to anyone? This one
Yeah.
concept, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. So we're building an SOP for the things that you might not necessarily think you need an SOP for, right? Like,
yeah,
or
definitely.
don't go reinvent the wheel. We work with cabinet shops. We've seen this happen in 50, 60, 70, 80 other cabinet shops. You're destined to get the same results. Just take this system and run with it, right? Cut your
Yeah.
learning curve down. Don't feel the pain, you know?
Well, not everything has to be so complicated, right? And that's
Mhm.
that's what I think is that's what I think is really cool about. And I joined your school community, right? And I've been watching some of your videos, and I think the landscape has kind of changed as far as information and what information is out there, right? And there's a lot of guys just giving it all away. Like if you
Yeah.
watch all your videos, I guarantee you I mean, you have much more to offer, but you're giving away so much information, and that's the beautiful thing. If someone wants to go on there and, watch some videos and get some ideas, they're going to learn a lot. And then if they want to reach out to you, then you can help them kind of focus in on exactly the thing
And
that
the
they need to the
implementation.
work
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why we built that school course, was more of like a mosaic library like what you've got, right? What
Yeah.
you help people
Mhm.
with is let me give you all the tools you could possibly need.
Yeah.
You go figure out which parts you want, and then you come to me, and I'll help you cherry pick the ones that I think you need in the right order,
Yeah,
Or I'll
exactly.
help you plan
Help
for it.
simplify it and sift through all of because there's so much information, but what do you actually need to focus on, you know? Because time is
100%.
money. Your time is
Yeah.
so valuable. So why waste your time, spending 20 hours on a project that's not going to fruit anything? And
Mhm.
there's something to be said though about trying it yourself and learning from it, right? Because that's how
Yeah.
you and I learned. We just learned by doing it, and that's how
100%.
all our customers are learning too. But every once in a while, they want to, well, let's just focus in. I don't want it to be so painful this time, you know. So let's ask Phil or let's ask Lee what they think, you know. So
Yeah, for
that's where
sure. Yeah.
it's very fun.
We say there's only two ways to gain competence. You either learn from somebody else's mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you feel that pain yourself and say that you're not going to do that. And that's
Yeah,
apparently the difference between a smart man and a wise man. Smart man, a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man
yeah,
learns from other people's mistakes and avoids them. I
yeah,
think I think you're totally bang on, man. And I think that
yeah.
that part where you've worked in a shop, you've been an employee, you've
Mm-hmm.
said, how can I standardize my portion? I'm going to take full accountability and responsibility for the role that I'm doing to make it easier. I think most people would say that you're an absolute unicorn of an employee in the first place, having that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But how could I encourage the rest of my team to have that mindset as well? Like
Yeah,
not even just for the CNC machine, but also, how can I make my employees disciples of lean manufacturing, for example,
yeah,
and put them in that mindset of continuous improvement?
yeah,
You
definitely.
know, and I think it starts with being the example yourself. You need
Mm-hmm.
to be SOP and data and systems driven. You need to be looking for not just how can I make this 10% better? How do I make it 100% better by relying on outside sources to come in and teach me what I don't know? And how do I become a specialist? This is where I think a lot of cabinet makers and closet guys really, when they come to me, it's almost like they've already been through that pain of learning the hard way, and now they're ready to, bring someone in to help them kind of figure things out. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I've learned is business, no matter what business it is incredibly simple. There's only three departments. You've got your sales, right? You've got your sales and your
Mm.
marketing. You've got your operations and production. You've got your admin and finance. Three very specific areas. And what I tell my clients is you have to pick one. You can't own all three forever. You need to pick one. Whether you're the
Mhm.
guy who's going to be in production and outsource your sales to like hire a sales guy, hire an admin, hire a finance person to come and be specialists at each of those areas. And I think that's where you come in the most, is in that ops and production side and say, well, within operations and production, how can we simplify the process using, catalogs, trainings, onboarding, all of these systems to put that to bed, so maybe it doesn't take as much time for the owner to have to focus on it. Would that be a fair assessment for you of what you do?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think for the sales and the finance part, that's where you come in, right? And it's yeah, for the manufacturing side of it, it's if you look at the training on my website, I kind of have it I have it to where you can pick what you kind of want to focus on, right? And it
A
all
la
leads to
carte.
the same place. Yeah, it
Yeah.
leads to the same place. We just have an hour or two on Zoom, but really that's there to kind of give ideas. And one of the topics is a manufacturing checklist, right? And this is such a huge piece of the puzzle. So I mean, you could talk about it for 5 hours, but the manufacturing checklist is essentially after the project is signed off on, there's a process that you put in place to make sure that everything goes from the office to the shop smoothly, right? And in building that, so there's kind of two parts of it, building it and implementing it, right?
Mhm.
Which both of them can be kind of tough because you really have to, it's like implementing any kind of a new system, right? You have to document what's going on now. And then once you build the checklist, you have to actually do it, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we've already built a checklist out, and we want to implement it. What I find, and tell me if you agree with this, but you can have a checklist, but where it falls apart is when you're not ahead of the shop by enough time. If you're not ahead of the shop by 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and you need to feed the shop now, it's like, go, 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 get those parts out. And that's when we always made the most mistakes because we didn't have
Mhm.
time to run a checklist. We're like, for the love of God, we just need to get parts out to the CNC. Let's just cut it,
Yeah.
right? Just cut it. We'll deal with whatever it is later on.
Yeah.
And, just listening to that, you already know it's there's going to be issues.
Of
Mm,
course.
But that's what I kind of like to focus on is how do we get ahead of the shop
Mhm.
by more than, 3 hours?
You're nailing it on the head here because I would even say that the exact same problem exists within every department of the business, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And here's an example. A big one that we talk about is, rather than just taking on any project under the sun that just so happens to stumble across your Google listing and give you a call, why are we not being more intentional with who we work with? And
Mhm.
that's doing more outreach and attending more events where your ideal client is going to be. You can't do that if you need a project tomorrow. You need that timeline, that buffer time to say, okay, I've got a month until my next project starts. Who do I really want to work with? Do I
Yeah.
really want to work with that guy who's just redoing his cabinets in the rental unit that he owns? Or do I want to work
Mhm.
with that high end designer who's working
Mm.
with $5 million house build? And
Yeah.
how to intentionally and strategically build that relationship over the next 6 weeks so that
Yeah.
by the time I'm done, I get that project.
Yeah.
It exists in every department, man. Same with
Mhm.
recruitment as well, right? Oh shit, I need a guy tomorrow. Well, what
Mhm.
quality of a guy are you going to find tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
I mean, a lot of this, especially in business, is getting out of that day to day mindset and going, how do I make a plan for the next quarter?
Yeah.
Like Jeff Bezos isn't sitting there worried about how he's going to sell his next Amazon parcel,
Yeah.
or Elon Musk isn't sitting there going, how am I going to sell my next Tesla? He's saying, well, I mean, Jeff Bezos is apparently sending people to space now, which, sending Katy Perry to space
Yeah,
anyway.
apparently.
But yeah, I mean, it's about getting out in front of your business and saying, okay, strategically, how do I plan this out? And those checklists, those SOPs, they feel like a burden to a lot of people early on
Yeah.
because they're still too deep in the thick of their business and they're still
Mhm.
reactive, reactive, reactive.
Well, and you can build the checklist, but you might come up with a 5-page document, right? And that's not a checklist, that's a training document. So
Yeah,
we
100%.
don't want a 5-page checklist. We can't have that. So in making the checklist, I kind of like to compare it to like writing a term paper, right? From back in the college days. So it,
Mm,
you just got to start somewhere. You just got to write the first paragraph, right? You got to write whatever, just start writing. It's the same way with the checklist. You just have to start putting things on paper. And
mm,
where I have shop start is literally it just write down everything that goes wrong in the shop for just a couple weeks. Anything that comes to mind, it could be something extremely minute, right? Like someone edge banded the wrong side of a part or something. You know, all these things matter because when you look at it with someone who does what we do is we can find the value in something that's very minute and small and we can say, well, let's improve your label so that never
yeah,
happens again, right? So it might seem like a little issue and you guys might be able to fix that and it's like the quote unquote like, oh, that only takes me 5 minutes to fix, right? Well, that took your guy 5 minutes to fix times how many times? 10
yeah,
times, 15 times, 30 times,
yeah,
and everyone in the shop thinks they can make a quick fix in 5 minutes, but it's never 5 minutes because you're pulling yourself off of whatever job you're on. Now you're into something else. Now the tool isn't
mhm,
where you wanted it to be, so you're searching the shop for tools, and you notice all these other things. But if getting back to the point, if a shop can just write down what is going on, and not a pointing the finger or anything, but just write it down, look at the facts, and see what we can do to improve it. You know what I mean?
100%. Or ideally, your people are bringing that to you on some sort of weekly
Oh,
meeting
definitely,
rhythm where
yes.
they're
Have your
cataloging
employees
every
in on
bit
it.
of you guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. And that's
yeah.
a little piece of advice for anyone who's sitting listening to this podcast episode and they're thinking, well, where do I start? Start by
Mhm,
broadening your communication channels and get a
mm,
soundboard from your employees, whether
yeah,
that's a daily huddle or a weekly, a Friday meeting or whatever. But what worked well last week? What did we do right?
yeah,
What didn't work so well, right? And then what's our goal for the next week? Like, if you were just to start with those 3 questions, you will be making progress. You will be cataloging issues that are coming up in your business. And like, you might have a big pressing issue, like, I don't have any leads, so I can't get to that meeting because I'm so busy marketing, or I need to go find a new job or something like that. Again, when you build that buffer time and you've got 6 jobs on the schedule, now you can start to implement those little, how do we increase communication and what should we be talking about? And over time, that blows up. Even for us, I was just chatting with a cabinet maker there that I've been working with for a couple of years now, and we're only just getting to the point where it's like we're running 100 different data points and reading between the lines.
Mhm.
So we're
Yeah.
finding even more problems when we have the time to focus on the analytics, looking
Yeah.
back and measuring before we move forward. A little tidbit for anyone who's listening to this too. If you wanted a good checklist to run through, we have a document called the 8 profit leaks. It's the 8 categories of profit leaks in your business where you might be
Cool.
losing money through little mistakes like that. There's a big
Mm.
section on production, you know,
Awesome. Yeah.
just gives you a place to look, right? Can I
Yeah.
go look under there? Is that broken? No? Okay, moving on. But you're totally right, man. Those checklists, honestly, I know it sounds like structure and it sounds like routine and it sounds like systems, and that scares some people.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, it's when you go too far from your routine where chaos, really comes out. Having no
Yeah.
systems, no structure is chaos.
Well, and it's also good to establish, w well, where do you wanna go with this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Are you just trying to break that $1,000,000 ceiling? Are you trying to eventually get to 5? Or, you know, sometimes you can't really know that until you get there, it seems like. But I've talked with, plenty of business owners that they've been at 5,000,000 or they've been at 10,000,000, and then they got rid of a bunch of employees and they went down to 2 or
Mhm.
3 because they're just happier, right?
Right.
So, once you know where you're trying to go, then you can start to implement certain systems as well.
Yeah, and I think if you're profitable and you're hitting profit numbers, like you could make the same amount of money at 600K that you could at 1 million if you're
Mhm.
efficient and
Yeah.
productive and you have great systems. I know, we say scaling in all of our ads. We say scale your business, grow your business. We're not
Yeah.
saying just willy nilly grow your revenue. I mean, that's pointless
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
unless the net come with you. So when you go into a business, right? Like when you go in, somebody brings you on board to come and do some consulting for them. Like, are you asking them more about, you know, what are your like productivity metrics you're trying to hit? What's your GP that you're trying to attain? Or is it just like, or like walk me through that process? Like how do numbers factor into your decision on what you teach someone?
Yeah, so, I mean, sometimes we'll just talk about, how much revenue are you doing, right? Or I'll ask them, "How many employees do you have?" So, if I know how many employees you have and what you're doing for revenue, then I can actually kind of, if you're in high-end custom, or you're in semi-custom, or you're just kinda doing RTA, those numbers will change a lot. But I kind of that's really all I need to start looking at the system and kind of, growing from there. So, kind of some of the standards I'll use is, if you're at 1,000,000 in revenue per 4 employees, you're doing pretty well, right?
50 an
You're
employee.
doing
Yeah.
great. So, you're doing great, but how much overtime are you working? How burnout are you? What phase of burnout are you in?
Yeah.
So, and then you can tell a lot from that answer. So if they're at 8 guys and they haven't hit 1,000,000 yet, totally fine. It's just maybe it depends on, what area they live in, what demographic they're selling to. But
Mhm.
either way, you can kind of get a feel for, by the amount of overtime and how stressed out people sound. You can tell how it's going.
Yeah.
And usually if it's, so there's not much of a system to that. It's just kind of a feel thing, right? So, I
Yeah.
probably work with what, it's 6 or 700 shops at this point. So I can, whether that be 1 hour, 2 hours, or an on-site for 2 days, I can kind of get a feel for, okay, we need to completely rebuild your MDF door system so that it's, we're, because you'll get into a lot of situations where someone's been doing things the way they've been doing it for 5 years, and you got a rat's nest, and you're like,
Right.
well, we just got to pull this thing apart and restart. But how
Mhm.
can we do that sustainably so it doesn't freak everybody out and cause problems on your old jobs? And, what is what's the path of least resistance, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
You touched on something interesting there, and I've definitely seen this before, but there's some guys out there who can get a lot more done with way less,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? Like, I've got a few clients that don't even have a CNC machine, and they're already up at that, $1 million or beyond,
Yeah.
you know? I was interviewing a guy last week who's he'll do $1 million with he's got 1.5 employees, 1 full-time, 1 part-time, and he's a
Yeah.
full-time firefighter, you know?
Mhm.
That's this cabinet business is his side hustle. He doesn't even have a CNC.
I love the companies that are doing 1 million per employee. It's like,
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah,
You
100%.
know? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so interesting to look at those shops, and then it's like, "Well, what do you need me for?" "Oh, okay.
of
Yeah, well,
course.
it's messy in here, so you're holding it together somehow. We'll look at what you got going on," you know?
Yeah, and I always find that it's one of those ones where they don't have a CNC machine because they don't have the space to put one in, and they're not ready
Yeah.
to make that commitment to a bigger space or
Yeah.
purchase something, or they can't get out of their lease or something like that. So it's
Mhm.
kinda like they figured it out because they've had no other option to, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting to think about, all the shops that, still haven't adopted CNC and they're still kicking butt,
Yeah, but they
'cause
all
they
want one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they want one for sure, definitely.
Yeah. For sure. So what
Yeah.
does it look like for someone like because obviously you said that you work with a lot of people who are just getting their first CNC machine.
Yeah.
Like, do you
Mhm.
have any insight on like metrics or productivity before and then after having the CNC install? Like, do you know anything about those numbers?
Not really, actually. I mean, no, I have no idea what it looks like before and after. I mean, my frame of reference, I guess, would be I worked at a shop without a CNC, and we had that one guy that was over there. I mean, we didn't even have a panel saw, we just had a table saw, but he was a machine, right? He was the guy who
Right.
cut all the parts. I would stack all the parts up and edge band them. I got my pressure pot out and just spraying contact cement. So we didn't have an edge bander either, right?
Right.
But I mean, I guess, yeah. What would you say? What are you seeing out there then? Are we going from you know, 1 kitchen a month to 4 kitchens a month, or, what's that look like?
Yeah, I would probably say that, the number of CNC machines can definitely be used as a scalability metric. Like you
Mhm,
could look at a CNC machine and be like, right, for every 2 guys, CNC machine, I can produce an additional $1 million. I can produce an extra $2 million,
mhm,
give or take. Where you're likely to see the biggest uptick from a percentage standpoint would be in your gross profit margin on the build portion specifically.
mm, yeah,
Now, I've never ran these metrics myself. Like, I could get the numbers if we really wanted to go. I could, reach out to a couple of shops and
yeah,
figure that out. But, it would be interested to see pre CNC, what does your productivity look like, right? So, how many
mhm,
hours are you producing out of your estimated hours per man? And then I would go, okay, if I'm getting my essentially trading labor for machinery, which is what you're doing
mhm,
there, right? Rather than it being
yep,
cut out on a table saw, right?
well,
Or a
yeah,
panel saw, you're now
exactly,
using the CNC machine to do so. Efficiency wise, I wouldn't be surprised if your gross profit margin per project jumped up by, 5 to 10%, which is a good number that you could use to say, well, what does that mean in terms of capacity, right?
yeah,
Because now maybe you
mhm,
don't need 2 guys or 3 guys or 8 guys, like you said. You might only need four, until you
yeah,
get the edge bander, until you get, the
mhm,
the the auto sander or something like that,
yeah, and I
Really,
think
it yeah,
that's the metric, right? It's not always, how many cabinets are you putting through the shop, I guess, but,
mhm,
how many guys did that CNC replace or that edge
yeah,
bander? Or maybe you keep the same amount of guys, now you're doubling output. Um,
exactly.
it,
Yeah,
whatever way the cookie crumbles, but if you're using it efficiently, man, what I love about, when you integrate the CNC is the amount of pressure it takes off of everyone in the shop. Like things they didn't even know were stressing them out are just kind of fixed. And now we get to
yeah,
focus on new problems, of course, but it's just the amount of relief that you can see in certain shops when I get to see that, when the light bulb turns on, when they have parts being cut on the CNC, it's pretty cool to
yeah.
witness. Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with that. I would definitely say that there's something to be said just with like the pressure that gets taken off of human ability and human skill when you do outsource to a machine,
Yeah.
right? Like that's literally what it's built for.
Yeah,
Like,
and
let's go for it.
you always got the cranky old timer in the shop too. That's like always going to be pissed about the CNC because he's been doing it. You know, he's been
Validate.
building jigs by hand, and he's just a he's a savant with the belt sander. But
Yeah.
it's if it's a high-end custom shop, there's always a ton of work for him to do that the CNC can't do, or it's literally faster to do it by hand. There's certain things where if you don't have a programmer for it, it doesn't make sense to program that, even if
Yeah.
you can you do it in Mozaik? Can you do it in VCarve, Fusion 360, what software? And,
Anyone.
it's just send to Billy Boy out there and just have him bust it out without the CNC or software, You can look at a picture and build it. If you got one of those guys, you're doing good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there will always be a place for hand-built cabinets for sure, but it's
Mhm.
definitely niched down to specific clients, right? Like I
Oh,
think for a
yeah,
lot of people,
definitely.
they don't really care if it's done by a CNC or whether it's done by a human, you know?
Mhm.
It's like we just want the kitchen to look like how we want the kitchen to look, or we just want the closets to do it. For closets, I think a CNC is a no-brainer, man. Like
Oh,
it's just
yeah, it's
highly scalable,
mhm.
consistent output, and it's, like you said, it's a library. You're choosing from a library of stuff. It doesn't have to be high-end custom stuff.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
yeah, closets is a super interesting space. I mean, it's been hot for a long time, but there's just so much money to be made there, for sure.
yeah, and I definitely find myself on the train with my clients where I'm encouraging them to create spin-off cabinet brands. I think we're at 5 or 6 of our clients have actually created standalone closet brands that are out
Yeah,
there as a separate business or a separate
yeah,
entity that are, they're carving at a 70% gross profit margin,
mhm,
but it's one of those situations. Is it how are you selling houses or are you selling hamburgers? If you're selling cabinets and that's your bread and butter, your average ticket price of 50 to 150K is great. Closets, average ticket price, maybe 6 to 12K, maybe
mhm,
15, you know, and you're worried about the market and you're making the market and the problem, which
yeah,
is, I mean, they're both very easy problems to solve, but 9 times out of 10, if you're doing cabinets, you can usually upsell the closets
exactly,
as
that's
well.
where it's at. Yeah, now
Um,
you get the full house build. You can do all the closets and the vanities and kitchen.
yeah, Yeah, and in saying that, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably heard me mention that gross profit margin metric as well. Like if we were to boil everything down and you were to only track one metric from production and operations, your build, your install, you know, all of your processes, your system, your gross profit margin is the only one that you can really look at. When we say
Mhm,
that cabinets or closets rather than cabinets are making like a 60 to 70% GP, it just means you're getting to keep more of that money. If
mhm,
you're 60 to 70% and you've bought that CNC machine and you're paying a lease on that every single month, it just means that you have to do higher volume and you're outsourcing it all to a marketing problem. And
mm,
here's the thing, closets are way easier to market than what I find cabinets on their own.
yeah. Well, they're easier
Why?
in every aspect
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that closets, like just from a marketing and scalability standpoint, why are closets the right way to go?
Well, so I kind of see closets as, there's kind of two different types of closets in my mind. There's just high end and then there's closets, right? So the high end, you have a lot of guys that, they don't want to do shared panel, half overlay, full line bore. They just want to build boxes. So
Mhm.
they're working in houses where, you can get an 8 foot tall box into the closet somehow, right? Up the stairs into the closet without having to take it apart and put it together on
Right.
site. So you're working in a high-end residence. And that could also include face frame inset closets as well, right? So we're not talking about shared panel construction. And on the other side of that, yeah, you have the shared panel construction. The closet industry it's been defined, like how you build closets has been defined.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a million ways to skin a cat, but you're not gonna compared to cabinetry, there's really only, 5 different ways to build your standard closet. And there's
Yeah.
one really good one, there's 2 or 3 really good ones, and then, it's whatever you kind of teach your guys and
Mhm.
can make money on. So,
Yeah.
it also comes down to I think closets are easier to design as well. So, there's just certain rules about how you design a closet, and it's so easy to just get on Instagram or something and look at closets that have been designed, and you kinda just you've seen everything you need to see after, 20 pictures. You know what I mean? And not to minimize closet design, there's some incredible closets out there, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of different ways to design them, but what I'm getting at is closets are a beautiful thing because through design and manufacturing and install, it can be very smooth, right? And
Yeah.
that's why I have that closet library as a download for Mosaic on through my website, right? So
Mhm.
I basically I set up the whole thing. It's all set up, all the options you need to design and manufacture and install a hardware list, accessories, like literally everything is there. You just need to build a few closets, learn some of the, you're going to learn a lot. If you've never done closets and you do your first couple closets, you're going to learn a lot, right? You can
Yeah.
buy my system and it'll teach you a lot, but then you're going to learn even more after the first couple you do, and then you can dial it in and then just let her buck. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Yeah.
100%. I think it's super scalable. Typically, even if you botch one job, it's not so catastrophic that it's going to derail your cash flow.
Yeah.
It's a very easy and palatable product to sell for sure.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is too, is on the marketing side, is closets are very visual, so they look great on Instagram, like you said, or Pinterest.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's where people are going to get this inspiration. You can encourage a lot, or you can, I don't want to say manipulate a lot of people into wanting closets just by showing them a picture of one that you've already done for somebody else.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's cool about closets is it's something that people want. It's not something they need, you know?
Yeah.
You have to want it. So when I
Hmm.
think of that, it's like people get excited about it. It's like a luxury item.
Hmm.
Cabinets, well, I mean, if you have a kitchen, you need cabinets, right? And then
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be variations of how they look and how they're built and the cost and stuff like that. But closets is like oh no, like I'm established. I want somewhere to store my 100 pair of, shoes or whatever, my Jimmy
Hmm.
Choos and,
Yeah.
my handbags and stuff. And plus, there's another thing, right? It's very female driven industry, right? For who the
Yeah.
decision maker is with buying it. And again, if you can paint the picture, make someone dream, they'll buy from you
Yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
exactly. And
Yeah.
we're talking about, $10,000 closets, but they pop up to 30, 40, 50, even 80 like pretty quick, right? So
Oh yeah.
when we start adding LEDs and a bunch of drawer boxes and an island, and you have these massive closets, they can get they can get up there, but what the beautiful thing about it is it doesn't get any harder just because it's bigger. It's
Yeah.
literally the same thing. It's just as easy to install. Just start
Mhm.
on one end of the room and work your way to the other, right? It's like,
Up the bottom left to right. Yeah.
yeah,
Gotcha.
it's not rocket science, so it's kinda
For
cool.
sure. So let's say, like, let's try and give these guys like a tangible kind of situation, right? Like,
Mhm.
if is there one thing that you would walk into a business you're looking for first? Like, what's the first thing that you're looking for that would tell you, hey, this shop is never going to grow or never going to scale until they do like get this thing fixed? Like, what would that thing be? What would be the one thing?
Interesting question. Yeah, I'd say so every once in a while, it definitely has to do with culture, right? So every once in a while, I'll cross paths with one person in the company that clearly wants nothing to do with me or what I'm talking about, right? They've got it all figured
Mhm.
out. And what's interesting about that personality type is that, I mean, everything's crumbling around them. You can just tell just by the way how everything's set up. You're so stubborn that you don't want to, you know, look at the bigger picture because you're comfortable with what you're doing now. But if you really look at it, I mean, you don't even have to look at it very hard. And there's just everyone else will start telling you about all these issues that are happening, all these errors that are happening. I'm thinking, how how are all these things going wrong simultaneously all the time? And
Yeah.
you're still like, it's just very interesting. So not to just blame it on one person, but it really does come down to culture and what you let permeate your business, right?
Mhm.
So there's like and maybe that trickled down from the owner, or maybe it is the owner or whatever. Usually with the shops I work with, it's usually not the owner. It's whoever's running running the office or running the shop or something like that. But
Yeah.
the cool thing is though is I don't think it's that hard to fix, you know. You either see the light, you know, you get that person to see the light, or you got to move on and find someone else to run the company, you
Yeah,
know, or run the shop. So,
for sure.
mm,
Yeah, and this is definitely something that I noticed very early on with our like, we used to do these boot camps back when I used to work with Dominic Rubino. I don't know if you
yeah.
probably met Dom in your travels, right? But yeah, but like picking people in our boot camp classes, this is like the foundation 6-week boot camp. You come in, I always was able to pick the ones out. I'm like, he's going to do a lot. He's not going to do much, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And a
Yeah,
lot of it was to
attitude,
do
right?
with like, yeah, it was
Mhm.
mindset, right? It
Yeah.
was just,
Mhm.
are you big enough to say, "Hey, I don't know everything, and I'm willing to open the door and let someone else teach me," you know?
Yeah.
And, a lot like you said about those guys who have been doing it by hand their whole life, they're not open to new technology. They're not open to CNC machines, right?
Mhm.
Wait till we
Yeah.
start talking to them about AI, dude. Holy shit, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's definitely that mindset of, are you an old dog and are you willing to learn new tricks, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah,
The cool thing is that there's so many people who have been through this stuff before
yeah.
that we figured it out. We figured out a lot of the things that work, but you're going to be the biggest bottleneck in your shop.
Mhm.
If your mindset is in the wrong place, if you're not willing to open in the door, and bringing in outside people, that's not just a plug to get us more work, right? Which
Mhm.
obviously, I mean, would be great, but I mean,
Yeah.
more just giving you the awareness of your own mindset. And then if that's you and you're employing managers in your shop, production guys, foremen, even office management, stuff like that. Well, what's their mindset like? Are they good? Right? Have
Mhm.
good core values? Are they on the right mission? That's the first thing that we talk about when I onboard a new client. We do a 4-hour call at the very start, but the first thing we talk about is what are the core values that we're building this business off of? And they go, well, wait, what is core values not corporate fluff? I'm like, depends. Depends what your mindset is around it, right? That if your mindset is about expansion and giving opportunities and creating a workplace where people can be the best versions of themselves, and you only let in A players, or you only let in people with great attitudes, and then you give them the skills and training, the mindset. Is that what you're trying to build? If the answer is no, if you're just trying to make a quick buck, I mean, go work for somebody else. It'd be way easier
Mhm.
than running your own shop, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
does.
definitely mindset is a big one, man. I love that you
Yeah.
said that because I see that for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely see that for
definitely.
sure. When it comes to like that chaos to control phase, right? So let's say that we're in a shop, they're approaching 1 million, they've got their first CNC machine, and they're moving into that like chaos and reactivity. Like if we were to talk about systems, what would be some of the systems that you think are the most important for any cabinet shop to get in place? Is it, is it getting your cut list? Is it QC? Is it packing lists for delivery? Like what are the most important systems to you that you see in a shop?
Yeah, so I mean when you're just getting started with the CNC or you're getting serious about getting organized, I mean, some of the simple things are like labels for your parts right off the CNC. So I kind of think back to when I was doing cabinets and we were labeling parts with a Sharpie. And then when I learned about, learned about cabinet labels, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. It tells you where to edge band and everything. We had these special systems for, telling all the guys where to edge band parts and all these things we had to remember in our minds.
Mm,
And it's really just about attacking as many of those things as you can, all those details that you have to hold in your mind, like, that's why you make a list, right? Whether it's on, like, paper or Trello or Monday or wherever you can get or your Teams, whatever. All these things that you have to do throughout the day, you have to look at that and say, "Is this something I need to be thinking about? Why am I thinking
mhm,
about this?" Right? So, let's eliminate that. So, I guess it comes back to mindset again, and and all the different processes though, I think it depends on how many guys you have in the shop, right? Or how many employees you have. So if you're well, it's when you're getting up around 8, 9, 10 employees, when you're trying to get past 10 employees, you're either really stressed out or you have something like Trello or Monday or some kind of project
System.
management system. You have
Mhm.
to have some kind of system to hold on to the details, right?
Wait, you mean that more people don't mean more problems, potentially?
Well, at that point, it's always the owner holding everything together in his mind, and you can just
Yeah,
tell, like, yeah, you're whip smart, but they'll be the first to admit they're like, well, I'm starting to forget like certain things that I never would have forgot before. I have to track this
right.
guy down to do this thing. You're just babysitting at that point, so you
Mhm,
need to be able to create a system that allows you to step back from babysitting and you know lets the kids take care of themselves.
yeah, 100%, and that says the first step in any process for a business owner, on my end anyway, is to buy back time for the owner. Like, let's
Yeah.
stop having you be the expert of all things in your business. I don't wanna say I have a major problem with it, but definitely, like, for my program that I teach our clients is to try and get away from that super high-end custom stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if that's your bread and butter, sure, if you wanna do it, but you have to
Hmm.
admit that you will always be a part of the process when you're the brain of the operation and you're always troubleshooting how to do that one-off, louvered panel for Mrs. High-end, super picky
Yeah.
customer who's gonna have 100 go backs, right? Like, there is a trade-off,
Yeah.
but to try and scale yourself back and make things simpler that you can build a process, a workflow, a framework, a system
Yeah.
around, if you can, and then focus on the other stuff in the business to charge premium pricing, right? We all get into this
Yeah.
loop of going, you know what? Like, we provide the highest quality cabinets and that's why we're so expensive, but nobody's going, we provide the best experience and that's why we're so expensive,
Yeah,
you know?
that's really interesting, right? Because you see a lot of shops that, they're doing high-end custom because they just, they absolutely love it. They might complain about it, but they love it. Like
Yeah.
the engineering that goes into building, because I come from super high-end custom architectural millwork, right?
Hmm.
In cabinetry, and some of the projects that we would work on were so damn fun. Like just the puzzle before us, right?
Yeah.
But the toughest part was we want to hit a home run, but we're just hitting singles and doubles.
Hmm.
We're thinking this project's going to take 200 hours. It takes 400 hours at least minimum,
Yeah.
so a lot of it's just learning. And the toughest part about custom, right? And why you're probably, having guys shy away from it if that's not their one true love, right? Is like the amount of time that goes into it. It doesn't get any that much easier when you move on to the next project because it's completely different.
Yeah.
If you're talking about curved doors, for the love of God, like curved doors, you can just change one thing like the profile, right? You're doing shaker curved, slab curved, easy. Then once you get a molding into the mix,
Hmm.
it ups the difficulty by 100%. And it's talking about I miss it big time. I haven't built a curved door in a while, but
Yeah.
it's just to get back to the point, yes, stay away from high-end custom if you want to, but my job too is if you want to stick with high-end custom, cool. Well, let's figure out how to do it efficiently. Let's pick the right software and let's pick the right software stack to get this done,
Yeah.
right? To manufacture it efficiently as possible. So I get a lot of shops that will come to me with curved or arched or beaded projects, just all kinds of stuff. And we
Hmm.
just sit down and talk about it and use my experience to try to help them out and you know get it to the point where they can make quite a bit more money. Not quantifiable on my end. We're not looking that deep into the finances of it, but I
Right.
know for sure that once we talk about it for an hour, we either we figured out how to build it better, or we're literally producing the parts for you so that you can make it into something that you can do, somewhat
Hmm.
repeatable, you know.
Yeah. And that's the key to it, right? Like, the key is it repeatable enough that you're not having to invest in specialized equipments or tooling or something just because you're only going to do this one project in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I would say you can definitely keep high end custom if you want, as long as the
Hmm.
numbers make sense.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
I've
Yeah.
never heard, or well, I mean, I've definitely met a few not for profit cabinet companies, but it's not because they wanted to be charities, they just end up being that. The amount of times that I hear, well, we paid $5,000, we paid $10,000 to do that lady's kitchen at the end of the day.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, yeah, it
Yeah.
looks good on your Instagram page. Looks great. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that lady's having a great time in her new kitchen. But you just lost a month of production.
Yeah.
You've lost money off your P&L. You just, you cut your dividend check back to this project instead of giving it to yourself or putting it in
Yeah.
your growth funds for next year. The numbers need to make sense,
Yeah, it
right?
better be a great portfolio builder at that point if you're gonna,
Absolutely. And
lose
don't
your
get me
ass
wrong,
on
I've
it.
got clients who participate in things like home shows or parade houses or,
Mhm.
like doing projects for magazines and influencers. And I think,
Yep.
yeah, you totally can do those projects that you're proud of and they look good.
Yep.
And, you can use them as an evergreen marketing asset, which is great. But you can't do those every single time if you want to step away from the business and have this become what is close to, and passive income doesn't exist. There's no such thing as real
Mm.
passive income unless you're invested.
Mhm.
But, like for you to own a cabinet shop and say, well, I only want to work 5 hours a week and walk away from this business and let it run in the background, you can't do that with super high-end custom work when you're the most skilled and experienced guy at building that stuff, you
Yep.
know? So this is why I say try and simplify your product line as much as you can. You can have a high-end option, but make it so that everything that you offer, your team can do it. You don't have to be the one who is the brain of the operation where you're constantly being dragged in. Your
Yeah.
job as the owner is to be sitting there and going, what's happening in the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, not individual projects. Like you're kind of getting past that point.
Yeah, well, and it's, where's the work coming from, right? If you're an established business, then you've probably gotten in pretty good with some local designers that are
Right.
taking you places, right? So
Mhm.
they're taking you to projects, and they're bringing drawings across your desk that, you're either going to say no or you're going to say yes, and hopefully you can charge a high number for it, right? Because you
Right.
got to
Which
continue
is,
to do business with that designer because they're feeding
for
you,
sure.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. I think getting in the pocket of a designer or getting your name in that little black book of a GC builder, designer, whatever is great. But find the designers who sell the product that you want to produce.
Yeah.
If there's a designer out there that's super famous for really high end custom work, maybe that's not your ideal referral partner. You
Mm.
know, maybe it's the designer who's working with upper middle class younger people who predominantly work in tech or something like that. Like you have to go
Mhm.
granular on who your ideal client is and go, how do I target the people who are upstream from me, right? Like
Yeah.
how do I go to the designer who works with my ideal client? What's the ideal project? What's the ideal trigger? Because trigger is a matter as well that you would go, well, when are people buying this project? Is it when they buy a new house and they renovate? Is it that they bought a pre-existing house and they want it personalized, right? Really understanding who your ideal client, your ideal project, your ideal trigger, and then most importantly, to me anyway, and this is because I'm on that finance kind of admin side,
Mhm.
is what's the ideal profit margin as well.
Yeah.
So this is where me and you could do some damage together because you're in that mind and I'm on the
Yeah,
on the business mind.
definitely.
If
Exactly.
you're ever looking for a job and you want to start a cabinet business, we'll team up to do that. That'd be
Yeah.
super fun.
Well, I mean, it's funny, that's where the closets kinda come into play too. It allows some of those shops that are used to doing all the custom work, and now they can dip their toes into what it feels like to just design something in an hour, send it to the CNC, cut it out, and
Mhm.
install it in a day, you know?
Right.
Just just to get the light bulbs to go off.
100%, 100%. Sitting here chatting with you, and the more I talk about closets, the more I love them. Like I've got a client that I've been working with
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
well, when I met him, he was a cabinet maker. He had just stopped being a cabinet maker and had made the decision to move to closets, and he was starting from scratch. And this is just over almost 2 years now. I've been working with him. You'll know him for sure. I'll give you his name
Mhm.
after. But he went basically from zero, and in 24 months, well, he just sold October. He sold $525,000 worth of closet specific work, just closet work. You know,
Love it.
super scalable,
Yeah.
super duper scalable. I love it. So let's jump back in because I mean I could chat with you for like hours and hours and hours here on this stuff. But I think when it comes to what you do for your clients, like I think you're most of like a technical anchor when it comes to the CNC and the production
Yeah.
output.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to like those libraries, your CAD and your CAM, your workflow setup and stuff like that,
Mhm.
you know, what's mostly a tech mistake that people make? Is it that they don't invest in the right, like, they don't invest in the right software? Is it that they have parts missing from the software? Like, paint a picture of what good looks like from a software and tech perspective so that they could fully utilize what you do in their business.
Yeah, so sometimes I like to when I meet a new customer and they come to me with something general, right? They don't really have a list. They're like, "Well, I just wanted to, hang out and see what you could do for my company." So, and I'll always start with, "Okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm an outside drafts person, like a third party drafter. You just contracted me to draft a job for you. Now let's start in Mosaic and let's see if I even know what's going on." So,
Mm,
in that question right there, can someone or a new hire, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be a third party drafter. It could be a new hire. How easy is it to onboard that new customer, or that new employee, right?
mm,
So that's like one of the main things. If your system isn't easy to use, then you are losing money, time and money like no other. It is permeating through your entire business. If the front end is not dialed in and it's not organized, and you're constantly looking for where's this product, or what's this setting, what's this construction method, am I using the right one? There's all these little things we just learn to deal with, but we don't want to just learn to live to deal with them. We want to just fix them, right?
yeah,
So that's kind of the first thing I do is, and that's what I'm always looking for. I'm always looking for those kinds of things, but I'll look for that because that's where I start at, right?
yeah, yeah. So you're putting yourself in the shoes of a new employee who's coming in and you have to learn the system from scratch.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how many questions do I have to ask somebody to know what the heck is going on around here? So,
Mhm.
and I can't get the full picture just from looking at their settings in Mosaic, but I can figure out a lot. Like you'd be
Yeah.
surprised at how much you can tell just from, you know, how things are even labeled. Are we
Mhm.
are we are we using capital letters at the beginning of our words to name library products? Because if we're not,
That granular, eh?
we don't have enough OCD in our organization, and if we have lowercase letters and everything and words spelt wrong in our
Mm,
product library, then we have like way bigger issues than that, right?
yeah.
So it's how much care and attention is being put into these foundational elements that people are using every single day in their software.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if you were to give someone a guide on how to prepare from a visit with Phill Anton,
hmm
like how would you tell them to prepare? What would you need to have in place for you to have like full effectiveness coming
Oh
into
yeah, well,
somebody's
it
business?
kind of goes with what you were saying earlier about just being prepared. Like all I need from you is you put in the effort to make a list. It doesn't even have to be a good list. It just has to be some list that you made because you were able to take 10 minutes out of your day and really think about, okay, what what questions do I have? Because I have a lot of
Mm,
them, just make a simple list. If you can make a list, sometimes it's not very difficult, but sometimes, like we were talking about just a few minutes ago, you get so used to the system that you're using and you just blank. Well, you're like, wow, I don't really have that many questions. I just know I'm a little bit stressed out. Well, let's start there. What are you
yeah.
stressed about? So it's kind of just, we're just trying to
Yeah.
follow the breadcrumb trails and just figure out, what is going on here, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's the duct tape and WD-40 chart. Does it squeak?
hmm
Yeah. Should it?
Yeah.
No. WD-40, Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you on
Yeah.
that, man. So one thing I did want to talk to you about today was obviously like we're now stepping our foot into the possibility of like, artificial intelligence and outsourcing and stuff like that, And this isn't like I don't have a dedicated question for what should guys be doing.
Yeah.
Like what's your viewpoint on it? Like how are you feeling about the advancements in AI for cabinet makers and closet guys? How are you using it? Do you have any big hopes or dreams or aspirations for how owners could utilize this in the future, I guess is the question.
Yeah. I think the AI space is obviously super hot right now. It's like a very interesting topic, and mostly everyone's brain just kind of shuts off when they think about, well, what can
Mm,
I do with this for my company? It's like, all right, I've used ChatGPT. I've been frustrated with it. I've been scared with it. scared by it. Whoa, what can I possibly do with that? And I think, we can talk more about specifics, but I think just in general, if you're trying to implement any new tech or system, especially AI, just make sure it fits with what you're already doing and you're not just adding another app or like another
Mm,
software, another freaking place to go to find information. Because chances are you've already tried like 10 other softwares and now your business is split, and you've got information over here and information over there. Okay, let's
yeah,
let's make like let's let's bring AI into the picture and just make it 10 times more complicated. You know what I mean? So as long as it's done sustainably, which I think everyone's still trying to figure that out. I've worked with a few companies that, well, two in particular that are just really doing a lot with AI, like in a way where you kind of look at it and you're like a mad scientist freak of nature. Like what holy cow, you're doing what?
yeah,
you know? Um,
yeah.
but just I think the simplest ways you can start implementing it, is probably just for me, it's interesting to just think about how you can organize your projects a little bit better, or you can organize your customer information, or you can automate lead generation. And you were saying you did a session with Glenn Chua recently, and
Hmm.
I'm sure that's chock full of, you know, things you can do to automate for, making things a little bit easier with AI. But
For sure.
my general take on it right now is that it just needs to be done sustainably. You just need to figure out that one thing that you can add to the mix that isn't going to just complicate things.
Mhm. I think like personally for me, I think AI is great for creating mental bandwidth for owners of businesses in
Cool.
terms
Yeah.
of pulling information from point A, combining it with point B to give
Mm,
you point C, right?
yeah.
Like I think that's the important part. If you're relying on it for things like give me advice or tell me what to do, I don't think it's all that great right now
Yeah.
because it's
Hmm.
pulling just wrong information from the internet and giving you wrong information.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to, if you want to be prepared to have someone like Phil come into your business,
Hmm.
like having some of those automations there and some numbers to back it up. Then from my point anyway, if I was coming into a business, I want to see numbers, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
like, tell me what the numbers are. That tells me everything I need to know. Very much like
Yeah.
how you said, if it's not capitalized in the library, I know exactly
Yeah.
what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, using AI, just like Phil said there, right? Like to make your life easier, give yourself some mental bandwidth to be able to take that step back and really look at your operation and say, hey, is this really working here? Or could we be doing this more efficient or better?
Hmm.
And I'm asking everybody that question now because I'm just super interested. I'm like, how are you using AI? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad
Yeah.
thing? I
I
think it's a good thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, organizing information and automating like, simple tasks is pretty that's a good place to start. And I'm personally more interested in, how can we automate drafting? How can we automate quoting?
Mm,
How can we automate
yeah.
ordering? Like those are the big things that I've been looking into pretty hard in the recent months. And
Mm,
it's it's crazy what's going on right now. Like, there's not a ton of things that are finalized yet,
mhm.
in the world of AI and cabinetry, but there's a lot of things in the works with, various guys like Glenn and myself. And I it's funny because, for an entrepreneur, AI is like a beautiful thing because,
Oh, yeah.
it can be beautiful, and then it can also be a thorn in your side because it's there's so many possibilities, right? So it's like what
Yeah.
what shiny object do you go after?
And
And
that's it. Yeah,
yeah.
100%, 100%. There's a lot of stuff out there that you could be chasing after that make a very small difference, even though it looks like it might make a big difference to you, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I typically say, especially as things navigate, is just remember that no matter how much AI comes out, humans still crave human connection,
Mm.
right? Like we are a tribe, like we're very like psychologically tribal, and I think if you're gonna try and convince someone to spend 50 to 150 to 200 grand, that should still be done by a human, like voice to
Yeah.
voice, face to face, as much as possible. We're going to put a link in the show notes to this show, and that link is going to be to our school course. In our school course, there is a tool, and it is a systems and workflow chart. And here's the cool thing, is it was built by cabinet makers for cabinet makers, totally applicable to any
Cool.
other trade, any other business with a little bit of tweaking. But what you can do with that tool is you can go through that step by step by step by step. I think there's like 80 different steps for any, build process, sell process, design process, the whole thing. And you could go, hey, which parts of this can I give to AI? Is it transferring a work order from, when you hit a button that says work order complete, it emails it off to your production manager for a handover meeting or something like that. You go
I
through it
love
step
that.
by
That's
step.
awesome.
And like you said, it's a checklist, right? Like, where are my
Yeah.
opportunities that have to be face to face? Who's doing them? What SOPs did I have? It's really just a tool that you can download and really drill in. What do I have? What would I like it to be? And who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Is it me?
Hmm.
Is it a production manager? Is it an admin? Is it AI? And really just
Yeah.
build the map first, And I don't know about
Yeah.
you,
I
but
love
like
that.
my mindset here as a coach is that the day that you decided to start your own business, you're no longer a cabinet maker. You own a business that makes cabinets, right? You're an entrepreneur. Your role is
Mhm.
to grow a business, to innovate a business, to, be that kind of overseeing ideas guy. But you need to design that business so that cabinets get made, not doing it yourself, right? And AI can definitely help you in that regard.
Yeah.
If you've not listened to the podcast episode yet, which might not be out yet, maybe it will. We did just sit down with Glenn Chua, who is an absolute whiz with this stuff. He's a closet maker, but he's also an AI, I don't want to say nerd, sorry, Glenn, but he's definitely invested in AI and how things are going there.
Yeah.
Let's start to wrap up here, Phill. I want to go into kind of like business models, team structures, stuff like that, right? Simplifying the process. Like, where do we go from here, right? We've learned quite a bit on this, on like getting, how to
Mhm.
be prepared to have Phill come in, simplifying things down a little bit. I want to focus on some tangible actions that a closet or a cabinet maker could make today. And your advice, like, what are the big takeaways here? What should they be walking away from this podcast episode with?
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of covered we've covered the field with, I think one of the biggest things is taking note of your culture, right? And
Mm,
being prepared and really looking at how you're running your business, you know, and all those little spidey senses you get, write them down. Just write them down for a couple weeks, and then, you know, whether that's Mozaik, CNC, or finances, or lead generation, sales, whatever it is, you know, write everything down or record them into a recorder or something and get a transcript and whatever. But I
mhm,
think just the first step is just looking at your business, right?
mhm,
So you got to look at what's going on. And I like that because it's very simple, right? You got to start somewhere. So
mhm.
that's how you
I
figure
like
out where
that.
to start, is just by writing it all down.
I love that. So first things first, when you turn off Spotify, you go back into your shop. The first thing that you're gonna want to do is take a look and just say, where am I? Right? What is my mindset? Am I
Yeah.
currently the bottleneck?
Yeah.
Right. And you should
Yeah,
always
exactly.
assume that you're the bottleneck in a business.
Mhm.
You will
Yeah.
always be the bottleneck. Every time you say, I'll do it myself, it's faster. Every time you
Mhm.
say, oh, I'll take that project on because it's okay, because it's me that has to deal with, how screwy it is,
Yeah.
that's a problem, right? And like you said, it's just prep work, prep for the future. Start prepping now. If you've not had Phill come into your business yet, you know, plan on it. Build a plan.
Yeah.
Phil's just told you exactly how to prepare to have him come into a business.
Mm.
Get ready for him coming, because you're going to need him at some point. Even if you're on the fence about getting that CNC machine, maybe that's a 2026 goal for you at some point. Plan to have Phill come in. If you're a cabinet maker who has not dived into closets yet and sees the opportunity for yourself in your market, it's a really easy upsell that you don't need any more equipment to do. You've already got all the tools in place. You just need a little bit of training. Phil's
Oh,
there to do it
definitely.
for you. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm going to give everybody a takeaway on my side as well. And I think that this is kind of underplayed, but if you do not know what your gross profit margin is on every project, that's where you need to start.
Hmm.
You need to go, what does this actually cost me to produce a project? Especially for those guys who are doing those high-end customs. Yeah, they look great on Instagram. Everybody gets the warm fuzzies looking at them when they see them all done. But if it's not making money, it doesn't make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can feel good and be bankrupt if you want, but which one outweighs the other? So
Yeah.
what I would say is start tracking your gross profit margin, especially if you've just got a CNC machine. Look at your numbers from before or what you were producing it and how much it was costing you to produce a project, and measure it now that you have the CNC machine, and ask yourself, did we become more efficient? Did we become more productive? Have we increased output? The GP is going to be the most important number on your path to getting to net profit. So it's super simple. It's revenue minus labor plus burden minus material cost. That's it. Simple. Start there. And I'll give you some benchmarks and goals to go for.
Cool.
If you are a cabinet maker, really good goal is 50%, minimum 50%. It can be done. You might be naturally not paying attention to your numbers right now. You're probably sitting somewhere between a 35 to 40% margin, which is okay, but you can get to 50 when you focus on it. When it comes to your fixed expenses, aim for 30% of revenue allocation for fixed expenses, and that leaves 20% net profit. Those are some really easy standard benchmarks that anyone can hit. If you're in the closet industry, 70%. Push for 70%. It can be done. If you're in a major metro city, if you're in Philly, if you're in Atlanta, if you're in, pick any city, New York, you can get to a 65 to 70% margin pretty easy. But, pick your GP and focus on that. And if you do that, you'll be ready for me to come in and help you turn it into money that you actually get to keep later down the line. Phill, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. Do you have anything
Very
else for
cool.
these guys?
Oh, I mean, that was a good session, man. I'm
Yeah,
looking
I,
forward to
I
what we
think this
can
is
do in
the
the
first of
future.
many.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
this
was
is this
very
will be the
cool.
first of many.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
So my website is phillanton.com. One or two L's, it doesn't matter. It'll take you to the same place. And that's where you find all my downloads and all the, training. I do 1 and 2 hour trainings through Zoom, but I do also on-sites as well. I've actually started doing a lot more, like I call them remote on-sites. So you basically just rent me out for a day. It's it's fun because I get to work with customers that are doing, these are sometimes they're bigger jobs where,
Mhm.
it's a $250,000 millwork package and they're like, well, I want Phill to check it over. So we'll just sit there for 8 hours and look at every single room and we will find something, right? And that's the most beautiful thing too. I'll do a manufacturer review with you and we will look at this
Mhm.
huge job and no, I won't catch everything, but we're gonna find some stuff in there. And
I
while
love
we're
that.
doing it, we get a great picture of how the system is set up. So that's like, that's I'm really enjoying doing that lately. So we're just setting
Yeah,
aside 8 hours or 10 hours or 4 hours in a day and just knocking out a larger project is really fun. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Done my fair share of on-sites. It's definitely a challenge trying to help as that many people that fly
Mhm.
all over the country at the same time. So I
Yeah,
feel you.
definitely.
That's definitely a good system to optimize is doing the
Oh yeah, for
remotes.
sure. Yeah, when I do on-sites, it's normally for like, someone's really starting to they're trying to get into MDF doors and they're cutting out 15 or 20 different profiles. They want to build an empire and they also want
Mhm.
to tack on, different construction methods or miter folds or whatever it may be. That's kind of my bread and butter and we'll look at the system while we're doing it, but we'll just set you up with MDF doors like an entire system. So that's fun.
Mhm. I love it, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Phil's there as a resource for you guys. Like I said, you can either learn on your own and feel the pain, or you can be smart and you can reach out to a consultant like Phill. Highly recommend. Phill is a powerhouse in the industry, right? Like you said, he's worked with 700 plus shops, and how many unpaid phone calls he's done for people on the site itself, right? It's probably getting pretty high.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
resource, he's definitely a resource there for you. So use them. There will be links to Phil's website through our school group. So if you click that link in the show notes, that'll take you to our school group, or you can find us at conquercontractorchaos.com. feel free to jump on and book a quick 20-minute discovery call with me. We'll see if we're a fit, and we'll see if we can work with you to help get you profitable, to get your systems in check, get you marketing properly, and then yeah, we touch on production a little bit, not to Phil's level, but definitely from a numbers and
Yeah.
metrics standpoint, we'll get you squared away. Guys, this has been a ton of fun. Phil, I hope you come back someday, man. We should do this
Awesome,
again,
dude. Yeah, of course.
100%.
Cool.
And yeah, are you going to be at any of the big events in 2026?
Yeah, I'll be at, I think, was it KBiz is down in Florida this year, but I'll be at IWF for sure, like
Yeah,
in Atlanta. That's an amazing event. So I'll probably just go all week. Be super fun.
amazing. And I'll be there. I'll be at both of those too. I'll be down at the Closet Expo in Palm Springs, I think it is, in June,
Yeah.
and then August in Atlanta. So we'll be there together. Come and find us. Look for the Conquer Contractor Chaos logo or the Phill Anton logo on our shirts. We'll be representing.
Yeah, I'll be hanging out at the
yeah,
Frost CNC booth probably. So
there you go. Yeah. Nick can buy the coffees and keep us. Yeah, give us a place where we don't have to rent a booth there. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you on the next one. And if you need Phil, reach out to him. If you need me, reach out to me. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys.